Whalen has been in the restaurant business for over 15 years. Today, he's one of the owners of the Phi Church Restaurant Group. I talk one-on-one with Patrick for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Patrick Whalen, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you.
I know that obviously you're one of the owners here for the Phi Church Management Group.
That's correct. Yeah.
Who's Patrick Whalen these days?
Who am I these days? I think the same guy that I've been. Just a restaurant owner and a father and husband and somebody who spends a lot of time on the road right now, going back and forth between the cities. But yeah, same guy I've been at least for the last couple of years.
You talk about those couple of years. Obviously, you worked as a dishwasher all the way up to executive level management. And I know you have developed a service-centered style where knowledge, passion, and drive to excel are paramount.
Right.
What else is paramount these days?
In the restaurant business or just in the world? Both? Restaurant business. So we'll stick to my background. How about that? I think survival right now is what's paramount for restaurants. With what's going on with all the different challenges that are out there right now, I think the job of restaurant operators is to stay afloat and to find a way to make the best of a really difficult situation, and realize that regardless of what your numbers say, or laying people off or hopefully keeping them on payroll, this is not a flaw with the operations. I think that's hard, when you're operating a business and it has this sort of shock to the system. It's easy to assume there's something wrong with what you do, and the reality is I don't think that's the case. I think that it's a byproduct of just a really untenable situation right now. What are the numbers, Mr. Patrick? At our restaurants?
Yes, sir.
Well, each one's different. Right now in Charleston, we're doing the best of the three stores that we have open. I think we're down about 25% in Charleston. Charlotte's down a lot more than that. And actually, Sophia's Lounge is our little bar in Charlotte. It's actually doing really. It's like the little engine that could. It's doing really well. It's actually not down, not up, but it's close.
Cool.
Not year over year, but in terms of this window of time versus last year's window of time. Obviously, if you're closed for 3 months, you're not going to be up unless you're way up. But they're going good, and we've kept our key management in place, even through closures and whatnot. And so we're ready to reopen and to operate profitably when the time comes.
You talk about those windows. What was the window last year versus right now?
Like the performance?
Yes, sir.
We were, let's do the math here. So right now, like last week, for example, we would have been down sort of company-wide somewhere between 30 and 40% versus the same window of time last year. But all things considered, that we're pretty happy with that. That's I think a lot of places are down an awful lot more than that, or down completely, and so we're very thankful.
And you talk obviously about 25% at Phi Church Charleston. You obviously have this, service center style.
Right.
How do you articulate that style to your staff to say, hey, let's get these numbers up?
Sure. I think right now it's about focus on what you have. So, okay, I don't discuss the staff being up or down any percentage. Every customer that we have is important. And, I want to make sure that the guests that we actually do have coming to the store have a positive experience. And so it's a nice thing about this business because you're able to focus. If you're a server or a bartender or even a manager or an owner, you get to focus on what's right in front of you. So that shift that you're in, that table that you have, that guest that you have, or that guest you have across the bar, instead of worrying about, how are we going to perform year over year, let's worry about just that one person, just their experience, and give them, if we're not as busy, then we have more time to give to our guests, and hopefully they will feel the value, in so much as that they feel the extra attention perhaps. Not that we didn't give people good attention before, but now you can really exaggerate the time that you spend on the tables if you have more to give. So I think it starts with that one-on-one relationship with the guests, and making sure that the staff realizes that there was a time where there was nothing in this space, and we built it from somewhere, and we can build it again if we have to.
And I know obviously most restaurants, as you say, are known for one or maybe two things. Some have great food and incredible design or terrific service. How do you keep that intact right now?
How do you keep that balance intact? Again, going back to the individual experience, try to put yourself in the position of every guest that comes in the restaurant. The person that came in today to spend money, they're spending the same money that the person who came in 5 years ago did. Well, not quite 5 years ago. We're not quite 5 years old yet. But those guests are the same. We talk about this to staff all the time, where there are times where at the end of the night, maybe the staff is tired and they're ready to go, but the guest that comes in at 10 o'clock for dinner has the same right to an experience that the guest that came in at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. And so I think our perspective is to try to deliver the same product, the same winning product that we had prior to all the COVID challenges, and make sure that our guests feel that experience 360 degrees. So by that I mean great food, great service, and great ambiance. There's no excuses to not deliver that. In fact, I would argue that it's even more important now to deliver that 360-degree experience, because the guests that are venturing out right now are not as populous as the ones that would before COVID.
And what is the biggest difference between 5 years ago and right now when you think of Five Church Restaurant?
The biggest difference between 5 years ago and now, wow. I mean, besides COVID, I think where our company is now as a group is a lot more stable. We were still, I would argue, in our early days, in our infancy, I suppose. We were only 3 years in as a company, and I think we have a deeper management team. We have a better trained management team. We have a clear infrastructure in place. I think it's just across the board. It's a better operation, it's a better team. So, and I'm thankful that we have that.
What do you hope that clear infrastructure will look like a year from now?
Well, we're opening in Nashville in less than a year, and we're going to open the new restaurant Tempest. And so I would hope that means that we will have an even deeper team. The bigger that you are, the more you can employ economies of scale. And by that I mean you can hire more people and share their sort of financial burden between multiple businesses. It's like Costco. You go into Costco and you can buy 100 bars of soap for a third the price of buying 1 bar of soap at Harris Teeter, at Publix, or whatever your grocery store of choice is. And so if you use the same kind of approach with manpower, you have the capacity to be able to hire a lot more people and to pay people the right amount of money, and to in fact pay them more maybe than they get in the open market, to ensure that you actually keep them. Because I'm sure all businesses or all industries are like this, but the restaurant business in particular is so personal and so much about the people that populate them. Having the right people and having the people that truly buy into your concept is so important. And it's worth overpaying sometimes for that.
What is that manpower now in the mix of this coronavirus outbreak?
That's interesting that you asked that, because I got into a debate on Twitter last night about this. I think on the management side, it's a lot easier to staff right now because we had great management in place, and we were able to secure some financing from the PPP loans, and so we've been able to secure and keep our management team. I think on the hourly staff side, it's been harder, but we've still been able to keep most of our people, and that's been very lucky for us.
Let me dive into that a little bit more. How many employees have you actually lost since the beginning of this coronavirus outbreak?
In Charlotte, it's been a pretty good amount because we've opened and closed there twice now. In Charleston, we actually have done a great job. I think we're maybe only down 30% of our total employee base since this all started. They're making a reliable income, and that allows for retention of staff.
As a matter of fact, how many employees have returned since this coronavirus outbreak?
Again, in Charleston, we had 85. I think we're down to maybe 70. So it's pretty close to where we were.
How much money did the restaurant actually lost between March and right now?
Oh boy. In terms of total revenue, yes, probably close to $2 million, somewhere between $1.5 and $2 million. In terms of revenue, I mean, that's not profit,
right.
But that's sales. gross sales, probably close to $2 million if I had to guess.
And what's the traffic coming in and out of these restaurants right now?
That's hard to say because I think some restaurants are doing better than others right now, based a lot on your location and your reputation prior to all this starting. Certainly, we've seen pretty good volume. I mean, it's hard because you have to follow restrictions, which I understand and I'm not against, but it certainly slows things down a little bit. But there's a pretty good trickle of volume, and we've seen it kind of pick up since we reopened. Particularly, 4th of July really, was a great week, and then from there it just kind of kept going. We've had a couple days where we finished up over last year, which I find it very hard to believe, but I'm very thankful for, because of, again, all the tough restrictions that are in place.
As a matter of fact, how many reservations have you all have been canceled since March?
Have been canceled? Oh my gosh. Reservations, I'm not sure. I can tell you that special events, like we had lots of special events in Charlotte, we had lots of special events in Charleston. I think we reimbursed something like $50,000 in deposits in Charlotte alone for March, April, May, and June. So those 4 months, I think we had to return $50,000 in deposits because we just couldn't have the events, and it wasn't right to keep that money, of course. And so Charleston's probably that, maybe like minus 10, maybe like 40 grand, 35,000. So it's kind of a double whammy, right? Because it's pulled out of your cash flow, and you don't get to have the event, which it hurts because you don't get to show off your space and hopefully get those guests to come back.
What is the cash flow right now, Mr. Patrick?
It's actually we're pretty well positioned, again, thankfully, because of the PPP and because we have been fairly successful since reopening in Charleston, Sophia's in particular. We've been cash flow positive in those two businesses. Charlotte was cash flow negative, but we were on our way to being positive. We actually just reclosed for some safety issues, but we've been cash flow positive so far. So we're very, very thankful. We feel very, very fortunate to be in this position because I know there's an awful lot of people that are not.
And let me go back to Charlotte because obviously there's an issue right now
Sure.
with the phases 2 and phases 3. Mm-hmm. How has that affected your business?
It's made it hard. I mean, it's funny when this all started. I was less willing to sort of speak my mind, and in the restaurant business, you want to be diplomatic all the time because you want to attract all comers. And as I've seen the decision-making apparatus kind of fail, small businesses in particular, I've been less inclined to bite my tongue, and so what I've seen is most restaurateurs, especially in Charlotte, trying to do the right thing, trying to figure out the right approach to open, how to be safe, how to spend money on the space to make it safer, and then once you get kind of on a track and figure out, well, what's the correct approach, the rules get changed again. So you have to have masks, which is fine, or you have to
Yes, sir.
you have to spend money on the new layout or masks for people, which again, we're on board for all those things. I think our concern comes down to making sure that the place can stay solvent and safe at the same time. And that's not a reality in the Charlotte store right now.
Right now. What will be that reality in the next 2 months?
I mean, we're not planning on reopening we're not going to reopen the Charlotte store until there's a clear plan. I think that's my problem, is that I don't care if it's a good plan or a bad plan. I mean, obviously I do care, but from a business standpoint, I don't care if the plan's a good one or a bad one. I think what we would like is to have a clear one. And so we know the direction to go and how to approach it. If the government says you got to shut down, okay, we'll shut down. If the government says you can open 100%, okay, fine, we'll open 100%. We'll try to do the best thing that we can to operate safely. Our concerns are that it's neither of those things. It's as though they're trying to accomplish everything at once. They're trying to reboot the economy while simultaneously provide a safe environment or hold businesses accountable, and that's just not a practical reality in my experience so far. And so that's made it hard for business owners to try to do the right thing, but while simultaneously keep their heads above water.
If you were to be able to sit at the table with the governor and all these other folks in North Carolina, what recommendations would you put forth?
I'd say shut everything down, ask for federal subsidies that are targeted based on need. and stop making small businesses limp along, and pretend that everything's normal and okay. It's not. It's clearly not. And I just think that's a reality check conversation from a small business perspective. I understand there's more things to consider than just small businesses, but we employ an awful lot of people. And I think we're the largest employer. Small businesses are the largest employer of any other subsector in the economy, in the U.S. economy. I might be wrong, but I think that's right. And especially in a city like Charleston, where hospitality and restaurants are such a huge part of it, to allow places to stay open, but with weird restrictions and stuff, makes it very hard to stay afloat. And moreover, it forces you in a situation where, as a business owner, you can either close and go insolvent, or lay off your whole staff, which I don't want to do, or stay open and worry that you're providing an environment that's not safe for the people that either dine there, drink there, or work there.
What are those weird restrictions right now that are really worrying you as a business owner?
Well, I'll use North Carolina as an example because they're really egregious ones. They passed a law that said that you couldn't sit at the bar all day long, and I don't know that I understand that particular restriction. I actually was discussing this with one of my partners the other day. It's not so much that there's any one restriction that's overly problematic. I think when you look at them as a combined total, anybody who's operating in a restaurant can tell you that it creates an environment where the restaurants can't be solvent. And I think that's a really important point, is that this is not about restaurant owners making money. And I've seen that a lot on social media. Oh, greedy restaurant owners. I'm like, I'm not making money. We're losing money. Every partner, every operating partner in our group, there's three of us, we've all taken over 50% pay cuts, and tried to pass some of those savings along to our staff so we can keep everybody on payroll. So that I have an issue with, because that's actually patently untrue. I think when you look at the full scope of the restrictions that are in place, it makes it very hard to stay in the plus. And at the end of the day, that's what keeps you in business or not. Yeah. And so I think that's the real challenge right now.
I meant to ask you this earlier, but how much money did you actually have to spend to retrain your staff because of the coronavirus outbreak?
Well, so we did a whole bunch of stuff. So I'll look at it sort of as one large number. So we put in this ultraviolet system into the air conditioning that supposedly kills 99.9% of airborne virus. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. That might be snake oil. Why not? I think it was like $2,000 or $3,000, and so it's worth taking the risk to provide a safer environment. We put down new flooring in the kitchen and behind the bar. It's easier to clean. We put a new cleaning protocol, new training with the staff. So we provided masks for the staff. So between all the businesses, I don't know, we maybe spent $20,000, and that's not including that's only including things that were specifically designed for COVID related.
Yes, sir.
So.
And let me ask you this, because Charleston City Council has set restaurant occupancy at 50% of the pyramidal level, or one person per 36 square feet, whichever is less.
Right.
How's that working for you all, and how do you adjust?
Sure. I mean, I think that from an occupancy standpoint, I think everyone's trying to guess what the right number is or the right occupancy is. I think it's more, everyone needs to be trained on what's safe distancing and what's not, and then try to do the right thing, and use the right intent in terms of how you seat your restaurant. Again, I don't think that the cops are going to come in and arrest bar owners if people aren't 6 feet apart, but I do think that it's our responsibility as bar and restaurant owners to do the best we can to provide a safe environment for our customers and for our staff. And so we've tried to pace out our volume and space tables out. We've taken tables out, and we provide free masks for everybody that comes in. Not everyone takes them, but we try. I think that the intent is what matters right now. It's not so much the letter of the law, rather that can everybody just try to do their part and try to be part of the solution rather than be part of the problem.
And Governor Henry Master recently issued an executive order that he called enforceable, prohibiting the sale of alcohol at bars and restaurants past 11 p.m. How much money has your restaurant lost over the past 2 weeks, and how could the governor justify this as a health precaution?
So, if I had to guess, maybe like $10,000 in revenue, which in the grand scheme of things is a manageable bump for us, or hiccup, I suppose. I don't know what the right answer is in terms of keeping the bars open or not, or shutting down at 11 o'clock or not. I can say that it has probably impacted the bars far more than it's impacted me in Five Church Charleston. But I also understand the logic behind it. It's not as though it doesn't make sense. I think, again, that's another adjustment that's happened along the way. So if you're a bar owner, for example, and it's only a bar, it's not a restaurant, and you're open and you're operating, and the governor says, well, you have to close at 11 o'clock, I can see that being seriously problematic, because that's where all your revenue is generated at a bar. Then why allow the bars to be open at all? Why not just, have them be closed and provide, find some sort of subsidy that will allow for either the state, local, or federal government to provide some support. I'm not saying write them a blank check or get out of jail free card, but simply to recognize the fact that by forcing places to close when there's nothing wrong with the health of their individual businesses, there has to be some kind of financial accountability on the other side of that to balance it out.
What accountability are you looking at right now?
In what way? From the government?
Yes, sir.
I think it's just a reality check. I think it's a reality check, which is that, okay, if it's unsafe to operate restaurants, then close all the restaurants, close all the bars, and force the federal government and the state government to get involved and find some sort of way to help subsidize those businesses that are affected. It's plain and simple to me. I'm not saying that's easy, but it's linear. Again, allowing restaurants to open at 50% occupancy and have them sort of limp along to keep people employed, which is good, but to keep people employed and keep them off unemployment and to pay sales tax, etc. Those kinds of things I understand and I get it, but it puts restaurant owners in a really terrible position, because you want to do the right thing by your people, but you also want to do the right things so far as being able to stay open and operating.
And Nico Romo with Nico on Shrimp Creek says he would like to get help from federal, state, and city leaders who are delaying tax deadlines, waiving fees, and offering low-interest small business loans. But Romo adds loans are just that, more debt for already financially strapped restaurants with small profit margins. Mm-hmm. How much debt has you all been able to accrue, unfortunately?
Well, thankfully the PPP will be forgiven, as I understand it. And if this new round of PPP is passed, again, I think it will follow a similar protocol. Besides that, we've been fairly fortunate. We haven't had to take on a whole lot of debt. We were in a pretty decent capital position before this started. I think that what debt we did have, we've worked out terms with virtually everyone. You kind of all in it together. I think we've been very lucky. We've got great landlords, and our vendors have understood and they've been willing to work with us. And so as a result, we have not had to accrue the debt, primarily because we've been fortunate with the relationships that we built over the years.
Over the years. What was that capital position before this coronavirus outbreak?
What kind of capital position we're in? Healthy. We were in a pretty good position.
Yes.
So we were. I guess it's funny. I hired someone last year, and we were discussing kind of what my plans were over the course of the next couple of years, and I felt like there was going to be a recession, or at least a correction in the marketplace. I think that the previous bull run had started in like 2010 or 11, and it was the longest in the history of the economy, the U.S. economy, and just you can't just go up forever. What goes up must come down, and we just anticipated some kind of a correction, and so by virtue of that, we've tried to keep a certain amount of capital reserves in place just in case, rainy day money, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it is it's raining. It's raining pretty good right now. So I'm glad that we did that.
And you talked earlier about the obviously the Paycheck Protection Program, and the government that has rolled that out in April. But let me ask you this: how much did Five Church receive? And you just said, hey, listen, we expect this to be forgiven. But how much did you receive, and how much more do you need now?
Sure. The Charleston location received, I think the number was $405,000. And we promptly brought back our entire staff. We didn't reopen. And I think that's an interesting anecdote, is we brought everyone back on payroll, but we didn't reopen because at the time we didn't feel like it was safe or solvent in terms of what was being discussed. And so, and we hadn't made the adjustments to our space that we just discussed a few minutes ago yet. And so we just stayed closed, and we reopened June 22nd. So I think technically we stayed closed an additional 5 or 6 weeks past when we could have opened. And frankly, we reopened because the PPP money was running out, and we were like, okay, well, you know, we've made the changes to our space, we've made it safer. Let's open and let's see how this goes. I think we opened right before 4th of July weekend, actually. And so what we need now, we don't really need anything right now. I think we just need to continue forward on the I mean, if there are funds available for restaurants, we certainly will take advantage of that, because I wouldn't describe our situation as like imminently perfect. I think that being able to have some cushion, some room in the event of bumps in the road would be great. That said, we don't have to have those things, but I do think that we need to have a clear plan that kind of stays on a certain course, so that we can budget appropriately and plan appropriately moving forward.
And you say budget appropriately. Let me talk to you about business interruption claims. Mm-hmm. How can you, as a business owner, prepare the strongest possible claim to secure coverage for the losses that the restaurant has suffered?
Well, I mean, they've already made it very clear, the insurance companies have made it very clear that pandemics are not part of the coverage, which is true, and is disappointing that pandemics are differentiated from a natural disaster. I don't see how this isn't a natural disaster. But yet again, the insurance companies have found a way to maneuver out of any kind of liability. That said, I also think that if every insurance claim was processed right now, the insurance industry would collapse, and it would take years to get any kind of reimbursement on your claims. And so I know that some restaurants are currently suing insurance providers in an attempt to hold them accountable to this. You know, they're insurance companies. I don't think very highly of insurance providers generally, and so I don't think that there's a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow.
Are you going to sue?
No, I'm not going to waste my time. I'm not going to waste my time with things that are pointless. If a lawsuit is warranted for someone, for example, if somebody committed fraud, or if somebody defaulted on a loan and refused to pay it back over time, sure, I think there's a time and a place for a lawsuit. But to sue an insurance company, you know, for something that, frankly, the language is pretty clear, I think we'd be hard-pressed to be successful at that.
How should that language change in your mind?
I think pandemics should be included. I think pandemics, if the pandemics clause specifically states that it's not a natural disaster, I think that there needs to be a differentiation that allows for someone to purchase pandemic insurance if they so want it.
You talked earlier about the vendors and obviously your landlords and whatnot. What type of supply chain interruptions has your restaurant had to endure?
Sure. I think the big ones are that our food vendors are having a hard time getting product to us. I think it starts, and I'm sure that you've seen and read this, with the food, typically the meat manufacturers, chicken, beef, they're having major problems at their manufacturing plants, and so as a result, the product that's being produced is far less than it was 6 months ago. And so if we call and say, okay, we want 10 pounds of tenderloin or something, they'll call back and say, well, we have 5. I'm using that as a random example. That may or may not be true exactly, but that's the idea of it. And I think that's where we've noticed it the most, is that not only are the deliveries short, but they're less frequent, and so you have to call to make sure that you have enough product in house. So it's, that actually has been it's challenging and it's frustrating for the guys in the kitchen, but it's actually been better than I anticipated it being. So.
And let me ask you this, obviously other restaurants estimating needing at least $100,000 or less over the next quarter to remain value. What's Five Church goal as far as remaining value?
Explain what remaining value, what do you mean by that?
I'm sorry, remaining viable.
Remaining viable. It's like, I hope we have value. To remain viable, I mean, we are viable right now. I mean, both Five Church Charleston and Sophia's Lounge are solvent and are able to stay in the black. Yeah. We are not focused on making profit right now at all. Five Church Charlotte, on the other hand, to become valuable again. To be viable, we need to be able to open in a more normal environment, where the businesses that are actually located in Uptown Charlotte are still there.
And what is the state of Uptown Charlotte right now, as you know it?
It's did you ever see 28 Days Later?
Yes.
That movie? It's like 28 Days Later. There's nobody uptown right now. It's I mean, there's a populous base uptown of around 10,000 people, but so far as the banks, I mean, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Lowe's, Truist, which was BB&T and SunTrust, they all have their headquarters uptown or close to it, and they're all abandoned. So it's like driving through Asbury Park 20 years ago. It's there's nobody there, and so it's quiet. We actually have been doing pretty good business, all things considered, but a big percentage of our business is special events, bar business, which obviously isn't really happening right now. And so as a result, it's down more noticeably than, say, Charleston or Sophia's Lounge, which is a smaller operation.
How are you, as an owner, identifying new opportunities for Phi Church?
It's hard because we tried delivering and Uber Eats, and we still offer it, but I see this all the time. Well, I'm going to order delivery and I'm going to support your business. That's fine, and I would never discourage somebody from doing that. That said, our businesses in particular are custom built to create an experience when you go in the door. I mean, they are intended to be wholly immersive, and when you have something that's so hyper targeted like that, to not have the capacity to be able to host people inside your space or the way that you would normally, it makes it very, very, very difficult to come up with another plan because it's so specialized. And so it's like a concert, right? It's like a music concert where the entire functionality of it is to pack thousands of people in very close to each other to see a show. And so yes, you can do concerts where it's like live on TV. I know that what was his name? The blind Italian guy who was singing in Milan.
Oh yeah.
What is his name? Anyways, that's an option, obviously, but it's not the same as going to a concert. It's not the same thing, and I think the same holds true for restaurants, where you can be as creative as you want, but at the end of the day, you're making your income because you're hosting people inside your space.
Inside your space. Mm-hmm. You talk about that experience at Phi Church, and obviously you tried most of the things on the menu there. Mm-hmm. What is that one menu item that describes you?
Describes me or the restaurant?
You.
Me? Oh my gosh. I would give an answer, but then I think my staff would give a different answer if you asked them. I think, that's a good question. My favorite dish is the braided ravioli. That dish is excellent. Probably the braided ravioli. And the reason why is because it's super high maintenance, but if it's done properly, it's excellent.
Yes,
I think that's a good metaphor for me. But it also happens to be my favorite dish too. Wow, it's great. Definitely try it if you have you had it?
Yeah, that time. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Yeah. Did you like it?
Yeah, it was great.
Okay. Good.
I took it home and ate it. It was really great.
Good.
Now, you talk about Temp is obviously opening in, and I believe I don't know how you describe that.
It's an upscale seafood restaurant.
Yep. Seafood restaurant. How has that affected the opening of that restaurant with COVID?
Sure. I mean, it's completely derailed it. So we were supposed to open in April or May, and obviously we didn't have any people on the job site for a while, and then just for safety reasons. And then when we've been able to get work done, it's been slow moving because we would only have one team at a time. So like the electrician would come in one day, and the next day would be the plumber, as opposed to having like 20 people on the job site at once, and then thus risk social distancing issues. And so it's been slow moving. We're finally there. We're opening in like 2 weeks, and that's really exciting. But it's definitely slow. Yeah, breaking news. Yeah. Scoop. Scoop on Quintin's close-ups. But it actually worked out to our favor. I wanted to open in February or March and allow us a month or two before peak season kind of kicked in, and to tighten the screws on our operation. Opening in August is ostensibly the same thing, right? August is a fairly slow month versus some of the other months of the year, and September and October are not. So that'll give us a chance to have a few weeks to go through and practice and let the team kind of figure out and get out the kinks, hopefully.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't happen in a month, but some of them, the big kinks, hopefully are out in a month. So so it worked out. It got delayed, and our landlord's been great. We have the most amazing landlord, and he's been willing to work with us. It feels much more like a partnership than it does a landlord-tenant relationship, and I'm very fortunate for that.
For that. What does Five Church mean to you, sir?
Everything. What does Five Church mean to me? Five Church means everything. Five Church in Charlotte, when we first opened, it changed my life, and we've been able to bring in the most exceptional people. I would include you in that, as a matter of fact, since you're an employee. We should have said that in the beginning, that you and I work together, and so there's a potential bias. But I get to work with amazing people on a daily basis, and it's incredibly inspiring. And then to be able to host people in an environment that hopefully procures a sense of awe and wonder and excitement, and then deliver on that promise by putting really tasty, delicious, comforting food in front of them. That's economically it's been great for me, but mostly it's just been incredibly inspiring for me to see the businesses grow and succeed and thrive. And we look forward to opening some more of them, hopefully down the road. We'll see. We gotta get through the next 12 months or whatever. But after that, we'll see where we go from there.
Absolutely. Well, if I were to go into Five Church right now,
Okay.
what experience should I have?
Should you have? You should have the 5-star. You should write a review. No, I think what we want is we want people to feel as though the people that are working at Five Church care. I think that's really the most fundamental part of going to a restaurant. I mean, you can eat good food anywhere, well, maybe not anywhere, but a lot of places, and you can see cool designs lots of places, and you can hear cool music and get air conditioning, except in this office apparently. But you can get all those individually anywhere. But I think what's proprietary about our business are the people that work there, and like I said, we're very lucky because we've got really great people. And so I hope that the experience that we're delivering is something where the guests that come in feel taken care of. That's our number one priority.
Yes, sir.
So,
Well, Patrick Whalen, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome. Yeah.